Hola a todos.
大家好
Salut à vous tous. Bonjour. Welcome to Singapore American School World Languages. My name is Omar Rashid, and I'm the Interim Director of World Languages this year. I've been at SAS for 6 years now, and I've taught French and Spanish in the middle school over the years.
My name is Polly Hawkinson. I am a middle school Chinese teacher, but I have also taught in the elementary school. This year I'm also serving as part of a Chinese instructional coach.
Thank you for joining us, and the purpose of this message is to share a little bit about what our program means for your student. So the focus of the World Languages program here at Singapore American School is proficiency. What does that mean, Zhang Laoshi?
In our program, proficiency means the ability to communicate with other people in real-world contexts. We focus on speaking and listening because we feel if someone says, oh, you speak another language, it means you speak another language.
And what does that mean for me if let's say I just completed my first year in Mandarin Chinese and I find myself in Chinatown here in Singapore? What can I do with the Chinese that I've learned?
With our program's focus on real-world experiences, we want students to be able to head to Chinatown and be able to order something and communicate with them in Chinese.
And that sounds great. And as students progress in the program, our interpersonal listening and speaking focus is still there. However, it diminishes as students move up in their levels. So as they move up from novice to intermediate high, and then advanced, as well as the near native track in Chinese, the higher they move up, the lower the focus is on interpersonal listening and speaking to make room for literacy, so for our reading and writing, in order for students to develop their language skills at a higher level.
Great example of that is the Spanish program. When you get to grade 8 Spanish, you can take social studies in Spanish. Their literacy skills are developed to that point where they can read and understand and discuss all of that in Spanish.
So thanks for joining us here tonight. We want your child to have an excellent year learning languages.
And we want them to also appreciate the culture of the languages they're learning, whether it's French, Spanish, or Chinese.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we're so happy that you're with us here at Singapore American School. Muchas gracias.
谢谢大家。
Merci et bonsoir.
Back to school night, novice Chinese with Miss Jenny Huang 老师 and Mr. Polly Hawkinson 张老师.
At SAS, we use proficiency guidelines to determine the progress the students go through. And at the novice level, we're really talking about emerging language, phrases and sentences to help them understand and be able to communicate things at the novice level. When we're all learning a new language, it of course begins somewhere. But this is really important to see the inverted cone where they're headed as we go through to the next year, the intermediate low level, which is considered usually a one-year course for students, and then on to the intermediate mid, which is a multi-year course, and then on through the high school, hopefully. So this is very useful for us. This is also equally useful because it helps us understand the types of language students use to show their proficiency. So accuracy, we know for novice learners, is something that is emerging slowly. No one expects anyone to be accurate right at the start, but then over time, with feedback, they can improve. And then the type of text that they're using, usually we're talking about ourselves, topics that they're very interested in, they know a lot about, and then the function of it is how are they communicating about these things? Is it through partners or in a real-world context? So at the bottom, the content and the context are things that we need to consider, like what kind of vocabulary words do they need to be able to introduce someone to their family or describe a friend. They use descriptive adjectives to talk about a friend. So this is very helpful for us, the proficiency tree. So we know that in the novice level, really, we're working on interpersonal listening and speaking. So we want them to be able to talk to others and listen and understand and reply. So, for example, this is a picture from last year, but we could go around the school and talk to the Chinese-speaking cafeteria aunties and ask them questions as we're learning new things to say in Chinese. So we also practice listening passages and answering questions about that. So this, I like the analogy of the blocks, because we're really slowly building language so that they can say more and more as we go through the year. And then the other thing about the novice level, we have worked with the high school teachers to make sure that we are targeting the same reading expectations for our middle school novice classes. So we do start with the reading, and we, of course, in Chinese, we need to first understand each phrase, but then later at the sentence level or short paragraph level. So that is what we've been doing with the novice level for reading. So by the end of the year, they are prepared for going to the intermediate low level.
Right, so next up is what we are all very concerned about. How will your students be evaluated? So there are actually two ways. One is based on academic performance, and the other is based on learning behavior or learning attitude. Okay, so in turning to the grading standards, you can see from the chart here, we are based on proficiency and not the traditional A, B, C, and D. And the guidelines for advanced low, for example, and you will look at the score here, we have I3, I2, I1, and I stands for intermediate, and N stands for novice, and it gives you a little grade on where you stand. And of course, this part is really for the teachers to calculate, and it's a bit confusing for the parents. So probably easier for you is to consider what we have here. And this is actually a chart in your child's classroom, and it will show you for speaking and for listening and reading, that's a different standard. And one is exemplary, will be at I2, for example, and then meets and approaching as well as below. So that will probably be easier for you to understand. And that could be different from where you came from, so just please take note. Then secondly, you are evaluated on learning behavior, and that's based on organization, responsibility, collaboration, and reflection. So for responsibility, it is how you manage the academic materials, equipment, the space you have. Responsibility, are you completing and submitting work on time? Collaboration, being inclusive in the classroom, participating, giving constructive feedback to your friends, as well as reflection. So that's some self-help strategies, asking 3 before the teacher, thinking about ways that you are able to figure things out, use peer and teacher feedback, and as well as the rubric and examples to improve. So the next slide is where we're going to post all our assignments and materials, and that's one way you can be checking what is going on in the classroom. And so we will be posting assignments and materials on Google Classroom. So you can ask your student to take a look at what's been assigned. And for PowerSchool, the academic progress is posted on PowerSchool, updated as soon as possible based on students' assignments and tests, but also learning behavior will be there monthly. This year's novice class themes, first quarter is all about me. Second one is my family. Third one is my friends. And the fourth one is my school. Our curriculum is theme-based, and when they move up in grade level, we will also go deeper. So we may spiral back to the same similar topics and build upon that prior knowledge, extend the language skills and the content, and spiral back to review and to grow. So we do hope to extend the students as much as possible based on their capability to interact more with the content. So now in terms of focus on oral communication skills, that is our big focus. And we do also use reading and writing to back up and to support that understanding. When we teach, 10% of giving background information, redirection, or direction may be done in English, but 90% of the practice will be in Chinese, with self, with peer, or with a teacher. For homework expectation, we do not expect somebody to speak Mandarin at home to assist. So it should usually be something preview of a lesson or review for an assessment, as well as completing something that they have started in class. Sometimes if they have extra time, we may encourage them to do some extra listening experiences online.
So, of course, as parents, we all want to do what we can for our children or help them if we can. It's a little difficult with Chinese because not all parents speak Chinese, or they're wondering what can they do at home to help them. So, really, I think the most important thing is we can encourage them and ask them, "Hey, so what are you learning about now in Chinese? What activity did you do today in class?" And then there are exercises they can do online that we use, for example, Quizlet or Duolingo, big fan of that. And then there's a Happy Chinese series that's available for free, and it's at their level. So it's really helpful for them to be able to understand so much. And we know Singapore is a very Chinese-speaking location, depending on where you go on the weekend. So hawker centers are great places where they can actually use their Chinese skills. If one or both of your parents speak Chinese at home, then please continue to use it so that the student gets exposure. And then there's other things here in Singapore. There's plays in Chinese, TV programs, Channel 8, if you're still watching cable TV, and then radio stations that are in Chinese too. So any other exposure you can give them, I think is really useful. And then there will be progress checked in Power School, so you'll see the scores as the year progresses. The other thing I wanted to mention is about parent-teacher conferences. So we've started off the year socially distanced and spaced and slowly getting to know your children and their areas of strength and areas for growth. Some of us know your children from previous years, so it's wonderful to be able to continue the connection with them. But then we do look forward to seeing you somehow in October 7th through 9th. Of course, we don't know the format for that yet, but it could be Zoom or in person, and we look forward to talking to you more about your child's progress then.
Welcome to your child's learning space. As you can see, we have a print-rich environment and easy reference, so we have lots of Chinese word cards and questions and phrases connectors around the room. And let me take a wide angle just to show you our space. We try to keep students as safe as possible, 1 meter apart. And then here we have started our connectors by having students write and talk about their favorite places in Chinese. And so this is from my intermediate low classes. And then from the novice classes, they wrote also about their favorites and labeled them in Mandarin. And so a little bit about me, I study psychology at UC Berkeley and my Master of Education at UPenn. And some of the ways I try to stay current with my language is to record video shows or radio shows, perform and write and sing some Chinese songs. And then I've also had an acting experience on Channel 8. And so I also have 2 kids at the school, one in 1st grade and one in 3rd grade. So a little bit more about me then. I was born in Taiwan, grew up in their local schools, and then I moved over to Silicon Valley when I was in middle school. Then I had a chance to study there. I had a few likes and dislikes about food I like, such as sushi, Korean barbecue. I have a B-CLAT to teach both Mandarin and English, and then also a single subject credential in teaching Chinese from California. And like to exercise, loves movies and drama. And then just a few places I've studied at. I've studied in Brazil, in Beijing, and Nagoya, Japan. So this is a photo from the Channel 8 shoot, and just here, my contact information. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions at jhuang@sas.edu.sg, and my extension is 6446. Thank you for coming.